those seats on the right side. That way we don't have to follow each other's legs to get to a seat. We don't have share seats in the middle, so we'll take you to the open seats on the right side here. Then down to the right. So as a few empty seats in the front on the right side here, so no more seats on this and behind these counters here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, real fast, we go over more important rules are set downstairs in Spanish, since we do have people training in this room. Any cell phones at this time, please set them silent, vibrate, their equipment, or off. Any camera devices, please have that flash turned off. That lobby I was talking about for the ladder bunch of little ones is going to be right outside the door that we came in from. And just in case of emergency, we are going back down the same stairwell that we came up in, but gravity makes it a lot easier going down. So without any further ado, please give your attention to our wonderful presenter.
Hi, good morning, you guys. Welcome to Mission Control. My name is Alyssa. I'll be your host today. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Well, I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about what you are seeing here behind me. This is the White Flight Control Room. It is one of 5 control rooms in this building. One of the control rooms in this building is used to fly the International Space Station. And that control room is actually on this building, on this floor, just a couple of hallways away in that general direction. You can actually see that control room if you check my monitor in the corner of this room here. Those guys are flying the International Space Station. That is Flight Control Room 1, or FICR 1, where we're flying the ISS. Now the White Flight Control Room looks very similar to that room, if you can tell the difference. There's not many, because these guys in here are actually training and running simulations and learning how to fly the International Space Station. So they are running a simulation right now, so we'll talk to you guys a little bit about it. On that far back wall there, you're seeing their simulated space station. So right now, their simulated ISS is on the dark side of the Earth, so it's not in the sunlight. If you look to the left side of the screen there, you can see 6 camera angles that are all pretty dark, and that is because they are not in the sunlight right now. But usually, if they were, or if you're looking at the actual space station videos, that would be internal and exterior views of the space station. So you can actually find where their simulated space station is by looking at that center middle there. You'll see the map of the Earth. That's the orbital tracking map. And right now their space station is making its way across the Pacific Ocean towards South America. So if you look on the left side of the map, towards the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, almost to Antarctica, you'll see a white circle with like a butterfly inside of it that looks like it has square or rectangular wings. That's where their space station is right now. Since this is a simulation, that's not where the real ISS is. But for their purposes, that's how they're tracking it. Now, if you look just to the right side of that on the third screen that they have up there, you're going to see our code wall. Right now, it's completely white, and that is what we want to see. That means nothing is wrong on their space station right now. Usually when they're running simulations, that entire wall there will be filled with yellow and red lines of code. The yellow line were to appear, that would be a caution that they have on the space station, meaning that something is wrong, but it is not a major issue, and they can take their time trying to fix it and figure out what it is exactly. If a red line of code were to appear on that wall, that would mean there is a serious warning on the space station that could potentially endanger the lives of the astronauts aboard. And just before you guys got up here, we actually had a red line of code there that said they had lost altitude control, which is a major problem because the International Space Station actually orbits the Earth at about 250 miles above us. Now their station is 222 miles above us right now. You can check that by looking at the tracking map. You can see where their latitude, their altitude, and where they are longitude. Now it's going very quickly. So you can see those numbers are constantly changing. And their ISS is actually flickering pixel by pixel to the right-hand side of their orbital tracking map. So the space station actually orbits the Earth at about 28,000 kilometers per hour. It's about 17,000 miles per hour. It means it goes around the entire Earth in 92 minutes. So if you were an astronaut on the space station, you pulled an all-nighter, you stayed up for 24 hours, you would actually see the sunrise 16 times, and you would see it set 16 times within those 24 hours. That's something you're only going to ever be able to do on the space station. Now, before this was a simulation room, before we had the International Space Station, we flew all our shuttle missions out of this room, at least the second half of them. This wing was added in the mid-1990s, and this room specifically was built in June of 1995. At that time, we were about halfway through the shuttle program, so we started STS-70, launched out of this room. And then we did the rest of the shuttle program out of this room as well. The next 66 missions all the way until the very last shuttle launch, STS-135 with Atlantis. And you can check out all of those shuttle mission patches on their left wall of the room there on that tan strip. Those are all the successful missions they flew for shuttles out of this room. Now, aside from these 66 successful ones that were flown out of this room, we also had an unsuccessful mission flown out of this room, STS-107. That was Columbia's last flight. They were about 12 minutes from landing when we lost that shuttle, but we do have their patch in here to honor them as well. If you take a look at that side, you'll see 3 patches on the top there. Those are expeditions that were flown out of this room. And then you'll see 4 patches just underneath those 3 in the diamond shape instead of a line. Those were 3 unsuccessful missions. And then the 4th patch in that diamond shape was actually created by the flight director who was working in this room when we lost Columbia. He created that patch to honor those 17 astronauts that we had lost in those other flights. So that's what the 4th one is. Now, after the shuttle program retired in 2011 and Atlantis made its final touchdown, we closed the shuttle program. This room actually went dark for a couple of years, and we weren't flying any more missions out of it, so we had the ISS flight control room. So between 2014 and 2016, they did a major renovation of this room, upgraded it from our really old blue consoles with those PCs to the consoles that you see here now, the wood arrow ones. And then it was actually flying the space station out of this room for about 6 months to 9 months, while its flight control room, that one you see in the computer there, was getting the exact same renovation. Since we're running simulations now, we're actually in the future going to be using this room as well for the Orion program. If anybody, how many of you guys know about our Orion program for the future? Just a couple of you guys. I'm going to explain it a little bit. It's going to start unmanned launches hopefully next year with a SLS rocket. And Orion is going to be taking our astronauts back to the moon for the first time since 1972. And then eventually we will be going to Mars with the Orion project as well. And NASA has told us we are expecting to have a NASA American boots on the surface of Mars between 2035 and 2040. When that happens, when they step out of their lander and they make the very first boot print on the surface of Mars, and they call back here, Houston, we have landed. They're going to be talking to this room that you are seeing before you, White Flight Control Room, which will be soon known as Orion Mission Control. The men and women that will be working here will be the very first people to ever hear from the surface of Mars, and these seats that you guys are sitting in now will be filled with newscasters, crew members, astronauts, families, and friends that are going to be watching them land on the surface of Mars. So there's actually a little bit of delay to Mars. When we went to the moon, it was about a second delay, if that. It only takes 4 days to get to the moon, and the moon is about 250,000 miles away. Now, when we get to Mars, it's going to be about a 23-minute delay to hear back from the astronaut. So if that, by the time it takes them to respond to us, for us to get their message and send it back, an hour will have gone by. Almost. Because Mars is 55 million miles away. That's about an astronomical unit if I have any astro people in here, but otherwise, like these, to give you the best example of that would be, it took us 4 days to get to the moon. It can take us up to 9 months to get to Mars. That is how much farther away it is from the moon. So we are actually going to be, with the Orion program, going back to the moon to try and establish a station there, a permanent base, so that we can absolutely make sure that we can keep astronauts on another celestial body like the moon for an extended period of time, which would mean that we have a huge advancement before we start going to Mars. So we can establish a base around the moon, kind of like our space station around the Earth, and then we can actually establish somewhere for them to stay and live for a long period of time. That'll be our giant leap forward with Orion before we start heading to Mars. And that'll all be done right out of this room, you guys. So that's very special that we get to have you guys here today. And this will potentially be a future National Historic Landmark similar to our Apollo Mission Control, which is also in this building. It's actually a floor above us. Now at this time, I do have a few minutes. If any of you guys have any questions about this room that you're seeing here, I could probably answer about 1 or 2 of your questions. So I know I'm not that good. Otherwise, you guys, in just a moment here, you have a few minutes here to take pictures if you would like of the flight control room. Just please make sure that we have that flash off for our photos because they are working right now. Then you're going to be following your host back down to your booth. And as you guys stand up, just a couple of things to let you know. These seats love to eat your car keys in your walls and your cell phones. I find some every single day. So when you stand up and your seat folds, just double check that nothing slips down there. Make sure you have everything with you. Unless you drop money, that's absolutely fine to leave that here. And then you guys, if you do have any questions, I'm just going to be standing on the top of the stairs there. I'll be happy to answer those for you as you head back up. And thank you guys so much for coming to Mission Control. I hope the rest of your day is out of this world.
I had nothing in my pocket.
They're training.
I should probably shush. That's a lot of programming.
I see.
Oh.
She has no.
Uh-oh. It's a red code. Shoot.
Oh, no.
Disney.
And she gets see that big one.
It's a red code. That's a red code. That's bad.
Turn off all the water.
Yeah, you don't. You don't have medical tickets. They don't. What?
54 stairs, you don't need.
Shut.
By the way, it's NASA. We're NASA.
Please don't tell them.
They're gonna want to come. Go.
Yeah, but I'm making a whole video.
NASA. NASA. We're NASA.
Shut up.
NASA.
Enjoyed your time here at Ryan Mission Control. We're on to our next stop. Just to remind you to please remain seated while the tram is in motion. Jack, whenever you're ready, we're clear to roll.
Dan, I don't know why you're recording this.
What is it? What's that? It's so fun. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Yeah, there it goes.
As we leave Mission Control today, I am going to talk about a fun experiment they did on the International Space Station back in 2011. So for years, they've been sending different kinds of animals to the ISS just to see how they do in zero gravity and other experiments. And don't worry, they do so safely. They do come back down. But in 2011, they decided to send orb weaver spiders to the International Space Station. So orb weavers are known for their massive webs that they spin here on Earth, so they scooped a couple of them up and they sent them out into space. The first couple days, they had no idea what was going on. They were all over the place, couldn't anchor their webs down right, it was just kind of a mess. But after the first couple days, they did adapt to being out in zero gravity, and they used it to their advantage. So they made their webs perfectly fine like they do here on Earth. But for whatever reason out in space, they all face down on their webs. And that particular species always faces up on their webs whenever they're here on Earth. And anything that got caught in their web, they'd bounce off their web like a trampoline, grab their prey, and go right back to where they just were in the matter of a second. So they found out that spiders were about 2 times faster out in space than they are here on Earth. So what did we learn taking these creatures out in space and observing them? That we don't need spiders out in space. So the building that's directly ahead of us, and it'll be on our left side, is going to be Building 21. Now, before an astronaut launches out in space, they go inside this building and they get a checkup, see if they're healthy enough to go out there. After they've been out there for 6 months, since they can only safely be out there for 6 months, they come back down, spend 5 days of rehabilitation, then they go back inside Building 21 to get another checkup to see how their body fared while they were out there. And one of my favorite parts about this building is going to be the backside. So if you look behind us to the left, you're going to see a black wall right there that looks like it's missing a lot of tiles. That was done on purpose. That is a human DNA map. All human DNA is about 99.9% the same. So it's that 0.1% that makes you a unique person. And since this building is dedicated to the study of the human body and the effects that zero gravity have on it, they thought it would be appropriate to put a human DNA map on the side of the building. And if you didn't catch it, there was also a crosswalk in front of that building that also had a DNA map, but that was one of those helix ladder DNAs. And I think that's really cool that they think about this stuff and that they kind of want to just show it off. So they put that stuff on the side of the building or any kind of stuff that they do. Like if you know a little bit about Jupiter, they did something with that as well. But they're huge nerds for doing it, but I appreciate them doing it. Now, before I talk a little bit about Space Telescope, I will introduce you to the gray buildings you see on the right side of the tram. This is the Space Environment Simulation Laboratory, and it houses 2 very large vacuum chambers, both of which are National Historic Landmarks. These large white gas storage tanks hold liquid nitrogen, and they keep that at 320 degrees below zero. So it's not that cold outside anymore, is it? They pump that liquid nitrogen into the vacuum chamber to simulate the cold, harsh atmosphere of space, so they can test out the integrity of spacecraft and equipment. It takes them about 3 months to get those chambers as cold as it needs to be, and about 3 months to defrost it. And the larger chamber, Chamber A, is used to test spacecraft, and the smaller chamber, Chamber B, is used to test spacesuits and equipment. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about space telescopes because we have the next biggest telescope inside this vacuum chambers in 2017, December of 2017. And that telescope's name is the James Webb Telescope. But first, a little bit of history. You've probably heard the Hubble Space Telescope. It's been out in space for years, observing the universe and taking pictures for us. And one of its very first pictures is perhaps my favorite picture of space. So they took a very large picture, but then they zoomed in on this one tiny little spot. And in that tiny little spot, they have about 200 stars. But each one of those stars are galaxies. And the size of that picture, if you were to extend your arm out straight in front of you, aim it up towards the sky, and stick your thumb up like you're giving a thumbs up, that picture was the size of the tip of your thumb. And it still had about 200 galaxies in that tiny picture. But the Hubble Space Telescope is looking at the universe using a typical telescope lens. So kind of like one that you buy from Walmart or Academy or any kind of sports place like that. It's just 100 times more powerful than those. But we're looking at the universe using our naked eye. And there's a lot of things that we can't see out in space due to the fact that we only see a small portion of the spectrum that actually exists in the universe. We need some help. So with the James Webb Telescope, they put an infrared lens on it. And that will help us see all those objects that are invisible to us right now or moving so fast to the points where they go into the infrared. And with the James Webb Telescope, they're sending it far beyond the moon, and they're going to be looking at the edge of our universe, or what they call our observable universe. The observable universe is about 13.8 billion light years away, and as far as we know, there is nothing beyond that point. But there's a lot of scientists, including myself, I'm not a scientist, I just believe in this, that there could be something beyond our observable universe. We just haven't had the technology to be able to see it yet. So they're hoping with the James Webb Telescope, after sending it far beyond the moon and looking at 13.8 billion light years away, we can see what is out there, if there is anything out there at all. And they're going to launch the James Webb Telescope in 2021, so start looking forward to pictures then. I know I'm extremely excited to start seeing those pictures. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching our second stop on our NASA tram tour today. Once again, I'm going to ask you guys to please remain seated until we've come to a full and complete stop. And then we'll exit to the right side of the tram, and the right side only, and head for the black double doors that'll be at the nose of the tram. And once again, please remember what row that you were sitting in, because once again, we ask you to return to these same seats after our stop here at the Astronaut Training Facility, or the Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility.
Let's actually do a photo. Yes, we will actually rich this time. I'm recording this.
Be careful that my back's getting laser still.
Oh no.
I guess they turned them off.
Well, I mean, you kind of as well.
Is your badge personal?
I would like to go to lasers.
What do you think? Yeah. No, we're getting shot by lasers. Wait, so with your name tag, will we hit with the lasers if they're on?
Yeah. Walk right there.
Can I borrow your name tag?
You'll be able to come in a minute. Alrighty guys, let's see a few more moments of silence so I can go over the rules for this building. It is a lot of the same rules, but I am required to sound like a broken record to be a good employee, so please just bear with me a moment. Any cell phones at this time, please set them silent, vibrate, airplane motor off. Any camera devices, please have the flash turned off. And that one is just as important as it was in the last building. There are people working inside this building, not as many as you would think, but there are still people working inside. And once again, only glass is separating us. So they've asked us to ask you guys to please have that flash turned off. We're going to be making our way down a long, narrow catwalk, making 2 stops along the way. Now, they are working with the microphones and the speakers upstairs, so the first microphone that works is at the center of the building. So if you want the best pictures as possible for that first stop, please start taking pictures as soon as you get to the top of the stairs, more specifically of a green spacecraft that you're going to see very close to the glass. It looks like 2 giant green spheres on top of each other. But once you get your pictures taken, just continue to move on down the catwalk so you get to me or to the back of the line. The picture doesn't change a whole lot at that first stop, just the fingerprints on the glass. Now, we do have a bit of ways to go. It's a fairly tall building. We're going all the way out to the top. So we have a total of 126 steps to climb. I'm just kidding. We're only going up floor. It's only 26 steps. Now, if there are any physical or medical reasons you cannot climb the stairs, you're going to meet up with our driver, Jack, once again. Although there was a giant pole in the lobby, and they don't want us walking on it yet. So if you want to take the elevator, or if you're capable of taking those 26 steps, please do so. But if you need the elevator, we're going to have to take you back outside and around to that door there to put you into the elevator. And if you have any little ones having to get a little bit too fussy or loud during the presentation, once again, we completely understand. We just ask you please to step out to the side until they've calmed down. You're more than welcome to join us for the duration of the presentation. And that will cover the rules for this building. So we're going to head up this 26 steps. If you need assistance, you're going to meet up with Jack. You're going to follow her all the way outside and around. Otherwise, you're going to follow me up these 26 steps.
Yeah, it was.
It's like 16.
Parts for staying. Wait till we get going.
And once again, if you want to get that really good picture for this first stop, make sure you get a good picture of that green spacecraft that is very close to the glass there. It looks like 2 giant green spheres on top of each other. But once you get your pictures taken, please continue to move down the hallway so we can get everybody onto the catwalk to start the presentation. As I said, the pictures don't change a whole lot for this first stop, just the fingerprints on the glass. Yeah, he's had a long week, so he put on that mask so nobody would disturb him. In fact, they actually used to have a bunch of mannequins in here, and they would put them in different positions every single day. They're well aware that we do tours here, and they definitely have a sense of humor. But I guess they're using them elsewhere because they're not in this building anymore. Just that last guy there.
And so what primarily happens in here?
So they do train astronauts in here, but it looks like there's not a whole lot of people in there because we're still launching and landing with the Russians with their Soyuz capsule. And so they always train the astronauts close to where they're going to launch, and that happens to be in Kazakhstan. So they are training them right now in Star City in Moscow, which is kind of like their Johnson Space Station right now. But once we start launching and landing from American soil again, this building will be a lot more busy.
And still tours available?
Oh yes, tours will still be available. We've always done the astronaut training facility. And I gotta start the presentation. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the astronaut training facility, or the space vehicle mock-up facility. Now everything I'm gonna talk about for this first stop is gonna be on the right side of the building. But what you are seeing is one of the largest classrooms in use for our scientists, astronauts, and engineers. In addition to activities you see here, they are working behind the scenes to keep the space program current and moving forward. They are planning developing new hardware, along with training procedures, which will then be used by the astronauts in various International Space Station mock-ups you see down below. Among these include living quarters, laboratory modules, storage modules, the solar array joint, and an airlock that allow our astronauts to enter and exit for spacewalks. The International Space Station is a partnership of 15 nations from different international space agencies. These include the United States NASA, Russia's Roscosmos, the European Space Agency, Japan's JAXA, and Canada's CSA. These nations both provide and operate the elements of the ISS. And if you are wondering what it looks like right now in space, there's a model that's on the right side of the building hanging directly across from the group, and it's hanging from the ceiling there. That's what it looks like orbiting Earth, and it's anywhere between 250 to 260 miles above us, currently at 255, and it's about a football field's in length. Which, to give you a better idea of how big that is, this building that we're in right now is about 2 football fields in length. So the International Space Station takes up a little bit more than half of this building, which is pretty incredible that something that big is floating up above our heads right now. Still on the right side of the building, we're going to be looking at that green spacecraft that I was talking about. Very close to the glass. It's right in front of the Zarya module, the only module of the ISS that has all the mission patches on it. Now this is the Russians' Soyuz capsule. With the space shuttle retired, it is currently our primary mode of transportation for sending 3 astronauts to the ISS. And unlike our previous capsule systems, the Soyuz does not land in the water, but directly on land. The Soyuz lands with the help of parachutes and retro boosters. The main chute slows the Soyuz to a descent rate of about 16.5 miles per hour. Which is still a little bit too fast for a comfortable landing. So 1 second before touchdown, 2 sets of 3 small engines on the bottom of the vehicle fire, slowing the vehicle to soften the landing. Further cushioning the impact of landing are the crew seats with their custom-fitted liners. Those liners are made pre-flight, individually molded to fit each person's body. This ensures a tight, comfortable fit whenever the capsule lands on the Earth. And we started using the Soyuz capsule in 2011, whenever they retired the shuttle program due to the construction of the International Space Station being complete. So we started buying our way onto the Soyuz capsule because we knew it was a very reliable spacecraft. The Russians have been using it since the late 70s and early 80s. And also, Russian philosophy as far as their space program goes, that is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. They will literally use rubber bands and duct tape to fix anything. If as long as it still works, they will still use it, which is kind of scary, but very respectable. But when we started buying our way onto it, it cost us $51 million per seat on the Soyuz capsule. And we usually send 3 American astronauts up there. But nowadays, in 2018, going into 2019, if you thought your airline tickets were bad, try $91 million per seat on the Soyuz capsule. But that's okay, we get our baggage for free. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our next stop is going to be all the way at the end of the hallway. As I said, downstairs. Unfortunately, they're working on the microphones and the speakers, and getting NASA to do anything takes about 10 years. I'm just kidding, don't tell them I said that, they have better priorities. But feel free to take pictures as you follow me down to our next stop.
Spheres go straight to that.
Well, come over here and let him walk in front of you then. Then you can't step on your shoes.
They get help from NASA engineers to help build those robots. And just state competitions, then they can go to state. If they go past state, they go international, which is coming up pretty soon. Last year we had 76,000 people in the Houston area participating in this competition. Over the half of them joined Space Week Houston to take a tour so they could see the arena before they came. So it's really busy for us, and it's really busy on the floor. It's really cool. This floor was completely covered with children of all different ages, sizes, origins. It's really cool. But we're coming up on it soon. Not exactly sure when it's going to be here, but they did say that they're expecting a bigger turnout this year. And all those banners on the back wall there are from locals who have won these competitions. You'll see the same names up there. Pretty good. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and begin the presentation for this area, and this will cover the rest of the building from the center all the way to the left. So, unfortunately, they put a giant array module in the center of the building earlier last week, but if you can see past that towards the back, you're going to see a white mock-up of the Orion capsule. Previously called the Constellation Project, Orion is going to be the next exploration vehicle that carries up to 4 astronauts to celestial bodies in our solar system, such as the Moon, asteroids, the moons of Mars, and one day, Mars itself. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make landfall on Mars until at the earliest 2035, at the latest 2045. Why is it going to take over 20 years to do so? Because it's NASA. I'm just kidding. So on the trip, I mentioned that they're only able to be out in space for about 6 months. This is due to the fact that every month that they were out in space, they lose about 2% of bone mass and muscle, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. But after a year, that's about 24% of bone mass and muscle lost. Right now, our current technology for the Orion program, it's going to take us 9 months to get there, and 9 months to get back. So that's already 18 months.